Hello and welcome to the Filibuster. This will be our second recording of the segment titled Cloture, a discussion devoted to congressional and executive activity in Washington, D.C. Today's topic is the Disclosure Act, H.R. 1715, and also a companion bill in the Senate. Speaker of the House, Democrat Nancy Pelosi, pooled this campaign finance legislation that was opposed by a broad coalition of special interest groups, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Realtors, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the ACLU, and factions within the Democrats' caucus, including the conservative Blue Dog Democrats and the more liberal Congressional Black Caucus. The reason for this disarray of happenings within the Democratic Party is the fact that there were special exemptions made for the National Rifle Association. Essentially, the cause behind this bill was a Supreme Court decision called Citizens United. Now, the Supreme Court decision came down this fall, and it was regarding a political organization that wanted to film, or actually wanted to air, a movie called Hillary, the movie, before the Democratic presidential primaries of 2008. They wanted to distribute it through theaters. They wanted to distribute it through on-demand cable. Lawsuits ensued over whether or not that this independent organization fell within the parameters of what was known as the McCain-Feingold bill of the early 2000s, which severely limited what corporate contributions and what corporate speech was within the political atmosphere and political arena. Now, what the decision of the Supreme Court this year was that the majority held that the First Amendment corporate funding of independent political broadcasts in candidate elections cannot be restricted. It cannot be limited. The majority also maintained that political speech is indispensable to democracy, which is no less true because an organization is in fact a corporation and not a group of individuals. Crazy, right? It's like they almost read the Constitution. Now, this actually overturned the precedent of Austin v. Michigan Chamber of Commerce, where the court held that political speech may be banned because of a speaker's corporate identity. Here's a video from Senator Feingold on the reaction of the Senate.
So I'm excited about the prospects of this as being the platform for what I hope will be another series of reforms over the years, both legislatively and hopefully ultimately overturning this decision, which is no question in my mind one of the worst decisions in the history of this distinguished body.
Now, there were carve-outs made, special exemptions. Now, of course, the unions would not be involved with this. There are organizations. I believe that the standards are that they have to be present. If the organization is present with all 50 states, if the organization has over 1 million members, then they would be able to be involved and be exempt from this political communications.
They say it's a Disclose Act. It's not the Disclose Act. It's as old as King George trying to shut down the pamphleteers. And I'll be darned if I'm going to let them do that to the National Rifle Association and my members.
Now, some of these exempt groups, including the ACLU, released in the press release, said that we believe this bill fails to improve the integrity of our elections in any substantial way, while significantly harming the speech and the associational rights of Americans. Of course, the White House is behind this, saying that it welcomes the legislation to control the flood of special interest money into Americans' elections. Now, with me is actually Mike Collins, and I'm bringing him in here. He is an expert in both elections, an expert in politics. Mike, can you help kind of explain the strange bedfellows behind this legislation, with the NRA and the Democrats on one side, the ACLU and the Republicans on the other?
Well, you know, Hampton, that to get legislation through Congress, you need to appease special interest groups so that they don't overtly influence members to vote against a bill. So in order to get this legislation passed, they needed to create these carve-outs, or else these big umbrella organizations such as the NRA could put all their muster into opposing it. And the NRA, as much as it's a Second Amendment group that has mostly Republican support, they also support a lot of Democrats in red states who tend to be pro-Second Amendment. So with that in mind, they create this carve-out that exempts groups with 1 million members plus, and then you get the far left wing of the Democratic Party up in arms because the NRA is getting this exemption. It just goes to show how when they say that working a bill through Congress is sausage making, it really is.
Well, I even think it goes beyond simple sausage making. To me, this seems just like a desperate attempt of someone, the Democratic leadership, just trying to get legislation through without even really any consideration of what even its caucus needs or even what the United States needs.
The bottom line is nothing is going to get through Congress for the foreseeable future. Congress and the Senate, there was a tie-up with the unemployment benefits extension. If you're not going to be able to pass the unemployment benefits extension, don't be telling us that you're going to be taking up this DISCLOSE Act. Don't have the White House telling us in response to Senator Kyle's remarks that the only solution is comprehensive immigration reform. It's just not going to happen in the near future. Right now, the climate is toxic for Democrats. The Democrats control Congress, and their members don't want to vote on anything further.
The fact is that they've approached this with the idea of we've got to get the bill through.
Well, this bill is about real disclosure. It's about doing what we can within the context of the ruling.
What a lot of these special interest groups aren't hitting on is that within the legislation, there's actually discussions of what a political organization would be. And that kind of brings me to my point regarding the Tea Party. The fact is that there's no real Tea Party. Now, there have been candidates, there have been people who have named their book tours the Tea Party, whatever, and tried to claim themselves or proclaim themselves as the leader of the Tea Party. But the fact is that that doesn't really exist. They're grassroots organizations. I mean, what do you think that a bill that basically says any corporation or organization can't, within 4 months of a election, basically, address the public? I mean, what do you think that would have an effect on the Tea Party?
I think that the Tea Party is just one of a myriad of basically special interest groups. And, the president many times has said, special interest groups and, we can't have them affecting government. Yet, come the healthcare bill, the first thing the president did was reach out to the special interest groups and ensured that he had the support of AARP because they are such big players. And AARP's waffling back during Hillary Care, back during the Clinton presidency, was ultimately what derailed it.
I'll move on to my closing remarks on this subject and behind the bill. Thanks so much, Mike, for helping me out here. Now, friends, let's just take a real quick look at the First Amendment of the Constitution, shall we? Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Crazy! I know it might be odd for some people to think that even corporations should be able to have a voice, especially when we're dealing with situations where BP is a large corporation. It has committed a environmental tragedy, and the fact is that BP also gives a lot of money to a lot of people, including our president. So I can understand why some people would be hesitant to allow BP to have access to a forum during a political campaign. Well, the fact is, number one, that even if with or without this bill, corporations still cannot give directly to candidates. They can't give money to people. But what they can do is take an ad out and explain the situation. The fact is I think that if we had industry as a voice in our energy debate, if we actually had some of the energy companies come forward to the public and explain to them the situation, the viability of wind, solar, and other alternative forms of energy compared to what we already exist, whether it be natural gas, coal, oil shale, and everything else. I mean, I think that this is a voice that has left, I think, the American public uneducated, if not at least behind the veil. The fact is that with allowing this legislation to go through and allowing even the Supreme Court, had they kept the case intact, that means that our political speech would be completely limited through the lens of government. What does the incumbents, what do the incumbents want us to say? Where would they like us to say it and when? That's not the point of the Constitution. That's not what it says. It says that Congress, which is who made this bill, shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. So please, exercise your freedom as much as you can. Start an internet talk show, start a blog, do what you can, but don't let the government tell you when and where to speak. Thank you. And have a good day. And also, be sure to check out the remaining videos on the filibuster, updated daily. For more of content from me, you can always check out HamptonWilliams.com or follow me on Twitter /HamptonWilliams. Thanks for joining.